Guys, welcome back, and as promised, I am here to talk about the most recent 3 episodes of The Bad Batch. Now, those episodes were episodes 12, 13, and 14. Now, starting off with episode 12, we are starting to see the continuation of the previous episode on Ryloth, Devil's Deal, where we got to see Hera and what was going on with the people of Ryloth. And basically, at the end of that, the Empire framed Cham Syndulla for the attempted assassination of Ornfritar, and Hera barely escaped. So in this episode, as predicted, Hera basically sends out a distress call to the Bad Batch, Omega having given her their communications on the previous episode. So reluctantly, they go to check things out down there. After Omega appeals to Hunter's sense of nobility as a soldier, because she says when he tells her that they can't just keep sticking their neck out for random people, she says, "Isn't that what a soldier does?" So they end up going down, and Hera tells them about the situation. But after they're spotted by the Empire, they say it's too big of a risk and that it's not worth it. Hera says, it's not worth it to you. After some convincing from Omega, they draw up a plan and present it to the Batch, and they agree to go in and attempt to rescue Cham Syndulla and the rest of the kind of team down there. But Crosshair does end up predicting their plan, so basically Hera, Omega, Wrecker, and Tech end up going over to try and kind of cause a distraction. They blow up some other refinery part on the planet or location so that Hunter and Echo can break in and rescue Cham. But Crosshair predicts what they're doing because, of course, he knows them too well, and ends up kind of going back to try and kind of stop them and sets up a force outside the door. But Captain Hauser, the clone who was kind of close with Cham and the rest of them, who Cham had felt betrayed them by sticking to the Empire, even though, he's just feeling mixed loyalties, but he very obviously kind of has a little bit of his own free will, unlike a lot of the other clones, ends up, revealing to them that, hey, they've got a force outside that door. I'll distract them while you escape on a different ship. And, there's kind of this really nice moment where Hunter looks back at him, and I wonder what Hunter was thinking there, but so Hauser ends up walking out and basically has this speech where he ends up appealing to, once again, the clone's sense of nobility, and a lot of them end up dropping their weapons and standing down, to which Crosshair orders them to be arrested. The Bad Batch get Cham and the rest of them away, and there's kind of this emotional, farewell between Omega and Hera, and at the end of the episode, Director or Vice Admiral Rampart gives the go-ahead to Crosshair to hunt down the Batch, and that's how the episode ends. Now, I thought that was a pretty excellent episode. I really, really liked it. It had a lot of things that I appreciated, and it's one of those ones that does make me appreciate the previous one more, because it's the first time in this show where we've kind of had an arc. The Clone Wars and Rebels had stories that were split into 2 to 3 or even sometimes 4 episode arcs. Here we're finally seeing kind of our first example of a story arc happening in the Bad Batch. I guess the closest thing to that previously was the Cad Bane part, where Cad Bane showed up at the end of episode 8 and continued into episode 9. But most of these episodes feel detached from each other, and you could watch them without having seen the previous one. Like I said, the only one that really felt like that previously was the Rex, Crosshair, Cad Bane kind of storyline. Those 4 episodes did kind of feel like you needed to kind of see all of them. Or those 3 episodes did feel like you kind of had to see all of them in a chunk. But this is the first time where we're seeing kind of a continuous story being brought over from 2 episodes. It was nice to see the Bad Batch back again, hanging out. They end up helping Hera out. And it's just, I really liked the episode. There was a lot of moments that I appreciated where they told the story through visuals rather than dialogue. You got to see kind of moments where a lot of the time it's characters like Hauser or Hunter, and there's scenes where you're just looking at even Crosshair. They're just shots of their helmet, and you're left to wonder what you're thinking. It's left up to the interpretation of the audience, what the characters are thinking, and there's just very little dialogue in these scenes that tell you what they're thinking. I really like that form of storytelling, and I think it was really well implemented into this episode. And, I really liked, the kind of moral struggle that the Bad Batch are having, like, what is our purpose? And Hunter does say that they can't keep sticking their neck out for random people, but maybe that's what they're going to end up doing as they kind of accidentally keep putting the pieces in place for the formation of the rebellion. They're unintentionally doing that by freeing Cham Syndulla and helping the Syndulla family, who end up being very important players in the rebellion later down the line in the Star Wars timeline. So I like that. I really like that, that kind of struggle that they're having there. I liked the relationship between Hera and Omega. I thought it was really sweet. I liked the goodbye there. I liked that, they're continuing to have, like, Omega's continuing to kind of form relationships with more people her own age, and I really enjoyed it a lot. It was very sweet, and Omega is just a very, wholesome character, and I really like her a lot. And, I liked seeing Hera fly for the first time, because we know she does become, like, one of the most renowned star pilots in the galaxy later on. And I really liked all the stuff between, like, Crosshair and Hauser and like, the conflict with the Empire, like when Hauser confronts Admiral Rampart and talks about how their framing of Cham Syndulla doesn't really make sense because Cham was not the one who assassinated him, but he doesn't really have evidence. It's kind of like the sneaky scumbag way that the Empire did that, was assassinate Cham Syndulla and not actually, leave any evidence that anyone else had done it, so that no one would actually have any evidence to back it up, so that when the people who are questioning what they have done, they can't really back up what they're saying because they didn't leave any evidence of it. So it's kind of like a sneaky little scumbag maneuver there on Rampart's part, I guess. Rampart's part. But I really like the stuff with Hauser. I think he is a really intriguing character. Like, I think from his character model, he's supposed to be an older clone. So something maybe like that is playing into the reason why the inhibitor chip is not activated in his head. Maybe it never activated because he was never around any other Jedi, or like Rex said in Episode 7, very few clones have just been able to, by the choice of free will, or just by their strong will, have been able to resist the effects of the inhibitor chip and Order 66. Maybe Hauser is just one of those clones. Maybe the rest of these clones are just those clones. But when Hauser goes out and ends up kind of giving his awesome speech to the rest of the clones, he says, we are now being ordered to do something wrong. We have been ordered to, go against the people that we swore to protect. And then to that, a lot of the clones end up, like, putting down their weapons and, like, siding with him, which was shocking to me. These clones are acting on their own free will now. They are resisting the, occupation and the instruction of the Empire. So maybe that's some of why the Empire moves away from clones and starts conscripting people, because the clones, just their free will is getting in the way, right? And they are now starting to rebel against them, which could lead into some kind of clone uprising type thing that I've heard being theorized about. But I just really liked that moment. I think Hauser was really cool. And even Crosshair listened to him, because he lowered his blaster rather than just straight up execute him or order him to be executed. He only ordered for him to be arrested. And, it's another moment where he has the helmet on. You can't really tell what he's thinking. But, it's a moment that I really like, because he does lower his blaster as if he is listening and is acknowledging what Hauser is saying. Perhaps he agrees with it somehow deep down, but is still under the control of the chip. So are these clones just really strong-willed, or is the effect of the chip wearing off, or is the power of the chip just not strong enough to completely overtake the power of free will? There's kind of like a message that I really like there, and hopefully we'll see that explored more later down the line with Crosshair, like in the future. But yeah, I really, really liked that part of the episode with Hauser and all that. That was awesome. And and then obviously the episode ends with Crosshair being sent to hunt them down, or being given the permission to go hunt them down. And the way that it ends, like, they have the really haunting music that plays for Crosshair, that kind of synth creepy music. But the way they animated his face, he didn't look entirely happy about it. There were a lot of emotions flashing across his face. He didn't look like, heck yeah, I'm gonna go get those guys off my hair, like, or off my back. Like, he actually looked like somewhat upset in certain regards. Like, I really like the way they left that. Like, we don't really know how he was feeling there. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how that continues. So, yeah, that was a really excellent way to end that episode. And I really, really enjoyed that a lot. And overall, that episode was great. It was a great, like, 2-part story arc, and I was very pleased with the result. I thought they did an excellent job with the Ryloth story arc for the Bad Batch, and I'm glad this episode came out. I'm glad that it does kind of help improve some of the earlier episodes. Like, the previous one now has more merit, because now we know it was kind of part of our complete story that was going on. It even kind of improves the Raxus episode 10, which I already liked a lot and thought was underrated, but that I now have even more appreciation for, because it does end up playing into their plan in this episode and kind of showing the differences between people like Senator Avi Singh and Cham Syndulla. You know, like, I like all that. So overall, episode 12, just excellent overall. But then next up, we have the 13th episode, Infested, which I was really shocked to see the reception for. Was really poor. A lot of people, like, didn't like this episode. Star Wars Theory, a bunch of other people were saying it was their least favorite episode, and I found that very strange. I was like, why is this one all of a sudden getting hated on and being called filler and all this? And I watched it, and I really liked it a lot. The way that I characterize filler is if it does nothing for the character building, it doesn't build any character, it also doesn't progress the plot or narrative in any way. This episode builds plenty of character, and it does end up giving the Batch, the main characters, some type of moral lesson to learn by the end of it. So it does a lot of character building, and it does even in some ways progress the narrative and possibly the mindsets of the characters. So I don't really understand that, like, view on the episode is that it's filler, you know? I don't get that. I don't really understand that, because I really liked it. I enjoyed it. So just generally, like, the main plot, the Bad Batch return to Ord Mantell and find out that someone else has taken Sid's place and has kind of kicked her out. She reveals that he is the son of kind of a major crime boss, and that the Pikes have made a deal with him to pick up a spice shipment. So she and the Batch end up going on a mission to retrieve the spice and steal it from him, so that the Pikes will end up kicking him out and she can reclaim her place there. They do end up successfully stealing the spice, but things don't really work out, as the Pikes end up showing up and arrest Roland, but ultimately do, like, or kidnap Roland or whatever. But he does give them up to the Pikes, so the Pikes confront them, and they have to go back and retrieve the spice, because the Pikes end up taking Omega captive or holding her as a hostage while they go and retrieve the spice. After some antics ensue with the bug creatures underground, they end up going their separate ways, and Omega's returned to them safely, although Roland does get one of his horns chopped off, and it gets a threat directed at him by the Pikes. And that's kind of where we're left off. It's a really good episode, I thought. I thought it was really good. I really liked, just kind of on the surface level, I really liked that they brought back the random, they called her Ruby in this episode, but the random, lizard chameleon thing from the beginning of the 7th episode. It was a very kind of inconsequential moment in that episode, but I liked that it did end up amounting to something story-wise later on in the show. And I really liked that the people that end up being Sid's agents on the inside of the bar during their operation are the two guys that just end up hanging out in the bar and arguing all the time. Like the one guy with the voice box thing and the guy who looks like Hondo. I liked that those guys were actually like the ones that she has on the inside. You know, I thought that was very funny, like the fact that they have nowhere else to go. So they're like, 100% will help you take back the bar. It's the only place we hang out. Something about that was just really entertaining to me. I found that very funny. And I liked that they do show the progression that has happened with the relationship of the Bad Batch or between the Bad Batch and Sid. I like that they're able, after their most recent experience on Ryloth, to more willingly stick their neck out for people that they wouldn't otherwise really want to. Sid has proven herself to be reliable despite kind of blackmailing them and giving them like loose threats about revealing them. Despite that, she has paid them and has kept them a secret from people like the Empire. So they have, she's helped them out in the past. She took care of Omega while they went on their mission that one episode. And it does show the fact that after their more recent experience and through their experiences with Sid, they are more willingly able to stick their necks out for people like Sid. And I really like that they show the progression of that relationship and the fact that at the end of the episode, Sid says, I got the kid into this mess and I'm going to get her out of it, showing that she does really care about her in some capacity and that she is also willing to stick her neck out for them by the end. I really enjoyed that, the way that she says at the end, okay, boys, the first round's on me, it makes them feel like actual friends and like they have built up a relationship of some sort. And it does like show that the relationship she and Omega ended up building in the 10th episode has amounted to something and that she's now willing to stick her neck out for Omega like she was for her. I really like that. It shows that she's not just the stereotypical kind of cliche like gangster character I thought she would be when she first got introduced into the show. She's now becoming one of my favorite characters. I really kind of enjoyed her story arc or her kind of character building that happened in this episode. I also enjoyed the Pikes inclusion. They were way more intimidating than their previous appearances in the Clone Wars. In there, they kind of felt a little bit goofy and silly at points, but they actually felt intimidating here when they, threatened Roland and his family and cut off his horn at the end. Like, they were legitimately intimidating. And I loved that when they threatened Omega, or the second they said anything against Omega, all 4 members of the batch just instantly pulled out their blasters. Just something about that instant reaction, just simultaneously pulling out their blasters because like one thing was said about Omega. I love that. It shows how much they actually care and are protective of her. It's just really sweet. I really like that a lot. And, I also liked the Roland character wasn't just kind of your cliche, conniving, villainous guy. He wasn't like, oh, I'm going to take it over because I want to. They have this really nice scene where he and Omega interact, and she says, you're a criminal, and he says, you make it sound so undignified, as if to imply that some of the things he's done aren't nearly as bad as the other Star Wars criminals we've seen who just go around murdering people left and right. And the fact that when he says, oh, if my mother could see me now in shackles at the feet of the Pikes, it does imply that he's just a pawn in someone else's larger game. He says the catchphrase or the slogan of his family is take what you want. And maybe this isn't what he wanted. Maybe it's just what someone else in his family wanted. Maybe it's what his mother wants, and he doesn't really want it, and he's being forced into this position. Omega says at the end, maybe he's not that bad. I like that her experiences with the Batch, as they are kind of a more morally gray characters. They're acting in kind of a morally gray area because they're kind of mercenaries and going on missions that sometimes are questionable from a moral standpoint. The fact that she's able to kind of relate to him on a more personal level, and by the end, all of them stick up for him and end up saving his life in a way, with the Pikes only giving him, I guess a lesser injury, only cutting off his horn rather than actually taking his life. So I really liked that. I liked that, he wasn't shown to be a completely evil character. He wasn't just like, aha, I'm going to take your thing and then I'm going to shoot someone and kill them. he doesn't kill anybody. He kind of threatens the two guys that Sid hired or whatever, the guys that sit in the bar all the time, but he doesn't actually end up killing them. And it shows that there are worse people out there. It kind of gives the Bad Batch a moral lesson. Not everyone's bad. Even this guy taking over their friend's bar, he's not really that bad of a guy from a moral standpoint if you think about other people out there like the Pikes. It shows kind of the level of class of all these different individuals in the Outer Rim, I guess. And I like that. I like that they showed, the ruthlessness of the Pikes. They acted as a catalyst for the Bad Batch to be able to see, the difference of classes in the galaxy and the fact that, not everyone is bad. Omega says to Hunter at the end, after he asks why she stuck up for him, that maybe he's not all bad. Maybe the Bad Batch aren't all perfectly morally correct in everything they do, but they're not all bad, and neither's this guy, neither's Roland. I really liked that a lot, and I just really enjoyed the episode. I liked, when they go back to get the spice and Tech uses a light grenade or something to end up scaring off the bugs. I don't know, something about that was very creative. I like seeing them using kind of creative strategies to get around their problems. It was kind of like the perfect type of Bad Batch episode, I feel. You get to see them use their ingenuity and their different skills. You also get to see their character building and the relationships they've been forming. And I legitimately feel like the only reason people think this is filler and characterize it as filler and don't like it is because it doesn't have a big character cameo. Because almost every episode has had some kind of cameo or character appearance. And I feel like people are just mad because it doesn't have Hera or Cad Bane or whoever else showing up. Fennec Shand, It doesn't have any huge cameos. But I like them introducing a new character that we haven't seen before. Roland, The Pikes show up. Okay, we know the Pikes are in connection with Darth Maul, but it's not like they name-dropped Darth Maul. If they'd name-dropped Darth Maul or some stupid thing, I would have been like, what the heck? I don't care about that. Okay, we know from watching the other show that the Pikes are in connection with him. But I like that they didn't make a big deal out of that. If you didn't know they were in connection with Darth Maul, it doesn't play into the story. It doesn't, okay, yeah, I guess it's cool to know, but it doesn't affect the episode. It's mainly about the Bad Batch and their relationships with other characters and them learning a moral lesson by the end. I don't really have any big problems with it. I thought it was solid. I liked the episode. Maybe it wasn't my favorite. Maybe it wasn't the best. But it was another one that I felt was really underrated. I kind of appreciate these more subtle character building episodes. Like this one in episode 10 that people seem to be classifying as filler and they don't do anything for the story. And it's okay, yeah, not every episode has to be a game changer, but I appreciate ones that are slower and take their time and build character. And I felt this episode 100% built character on everyone's part. Roland, the Batch just as a group, and then Sid especially. I really, really enjoyed it. And I don't understand why people don't like it. I feel like it's just because people have this false expectation of big cameos happening all the time. And I don't know why that's something that people have just come to expect and that people just want to see all the time. Because I don't want to see cameos all the time. I like character building and development of the story. And I felt this episode did all of it. I felt it was kind of everything that kind of I like about the Bad Batch show just wrapped into a nice little episode. And I don't know why there's so much hate swirling around for this episode. Because of all the episodes, this seems to be the one that's getting the most hate, or at least is being said is meh. And I'm okay, but why? No one's really explaining why they feel it's weak. I think it's really good. It's it might be one of my favorites. I just like the subtlety of it, and I really enjoyed it. So yeah, episode 13, I really liked it. Don't get the hate for this one. Now, in our newest episode, War Mantle, episode 14, we start things off with a clone running through the forest. We don't know who it is. It is revealed later that it is Clone Commando Gregor, or Captain Gregor. Now, he gets captured, but not before sending a distress call, which Rex receives and passes on to the Bad Batch. Reluctantly, the Batch does end up going to this planet to go and try and rescue this clone that Rex has passed the intel on to the Bad Batch. They do arrive at the planet and discover that there is a hidden facility inside of a mountain. With some convincing from Echo, Hunter and Tech end up going in, and they end up rescuing Gregor. However, during their escape, they do get taken out, or Hunter gets taken out of the equation and ends up falling down this cliff. And he gets kidnapped, with the Bad Batch ending up escaping with Gregor, but not before the Empire on Kamino does eradicate the Kaminoans and wipes out Lama Su, ending with Crosshair entering Hunter's cell, saying, "I'd hoped for the entire squad, but you'll do." And that's where we're left off. So, just kind of starting off with what I liked about this episode, I really liked the fact that they did give some more characterization or something to Echo, a character that for most of the show has been lacking character. Despite a little bit being given to him in the 10th episode, he hasn't had a lot of kind of moral quandaries or questions, and I liked that he is able to convince them by pointing out the fact that when they went in to rescue him with Rex and Anakin back on Skako Minor in Season 7 of the Clone Wars, they were going on a whim, which is what they're doing right now to rescue Gregor, and that he would still be trapped there if they hadn't gone in to save him, with basically no knowledge or intel to really believe that he was even alive. They were even doubtful that he was alive, but they still went in and rescued him. And I like that they do end up going in once again, and they do end up rescuing Gregor, and their mission is a success in that regard, not obviously in the regard that Hunter got kidnapped, but in the regard that they did end up rescuing Gregor, it was a success to some extent. I'm not saying it was a successful mission, but it was successful that they were successful in rescuing Gregor. So I liked that, and I liked that it shows the fact that their priorities really have shifted. They talked about that in the 7th episode when Hunter was talking to Rex. He said, our priorities have shifted. And it shows that their priorities really have shifted. They're now more protectful of Omega, and they have to look out for each other more. And I like that Echo is able to convince them by pointing out, their past experiences together, and that he wouldn't be a part of the team now if they hadn't gone in to rescue him, and that, I like that, Hunter and Tech aren't entirely, wrong to be skeptical, but it does show the experiences that they've gone through and the fact that they have to be kind of trusting of each other. And I like that, there's kind of that theme of trust, from the very beginning. Hunter's doubtful, but Echo says Rex trusts him and I trust Rex. I like that, and I like that kind of theme of trust, and that they trust Echo, and that's why they end up actually following him into the base. I like that a lot, and it does give a little bit more to Echo's character in that regard. At least a little bit, which I do appreciate. It's not a lot, but it's something. I liked kind of showing the transformation of the Empire, once again, or of the Republic into the Empire. It's kind of scummy, to think that the Empire is still going ahead with Project Warmantle under the Kaminoans' noses. Rampart says to Crosshair that they will keep an eye on the Kaminoans until the time is right. And it just shows that, they're secretly conscripting soldiers out in this system, on this planet, without the Kaminoans' knowledge. And Rampart does say to mobilize all of the clones, so they're shipping them off Kamino, or they're eradicating them. It's kind of begun. They're starting to phase out the clones. Either they're killing them. There's a scene when it shows Nala Se and a couple other Kaminoans kind of walking the cadets down a hallway, so either they're going to get terminated, which is really dark, or they're getting shipped off planet with all the other clones. So it's officially begun. Project Warmantle has officially begun, and that's why the episode is titled that. When they break into the facility, they see some, old Republic commandos leading a group of what looks like the beginnings of kind of the Stormtrooper Corps, right? And, their armor is starting to look like that of the Stormtroopers, so you're already starting to see that, and I like that, and there's a lot of moments in there that are reminiscent of A New Hope and the escape from the Death Star. I believe Kevin Kiner even kind of uses some cues and leitmotifs from A New Hope when they are breaking out of the facility. So I like that. I thought that was kind of clever. And, I like kind of the cliffhanger it ended on, with Hunter now being kind of on his own. He's been captured by the Empire. They want to get something out of him, I'm assuming, which is what Crosshair, I think, was implying, was, I'd hope for the rest of them. Either that, or he's just like, I'm going to mess you up, I'm going to beat you up, and I just hoped that everyone else was here for me to beat them up as well, but at least I have you to beat up. I don't know. I don't know if that was just kind of like a scummy thing that he was saying, or if there actually is a use for him. But, Lama Su gets taken out. I thought that was really dark. I don't like Lama Su, but something about that scene, it just didn't sit right with me. It was a really dark scene right up with when Crosshair executes those civilians in the 3rd episode. It proves this show's not a kid's show. There's a lot of dark elements, and this episode itself was just really dark, something just really rotten about that, Lama Su, he's not a great guy. They were in league with Sidious, they knew about the plan, they treat the clones like property, but at the same time, they were kind of, they were messed up by the Empire. They were just forked over by the Empire, they were just, messed up, and the Empire just kind of drained them of resources until they didn't have use of them anymore. And once they were, they're just like, we're going to eradicate you, which is just, it's just really scummy, And Lama Su, I don't like that guy. He was going to terminate Omega, but at the same time, just like, I don't think he deserved to get freaking flamethrowered. you got like flamethrowered and machine gunned is what is implied at the end, because they show 2 of the elite squad members cornering him in the room and the doors just close. And it's just like, that's just so grim. That's so messed up. It's just like, it just doesn't sit right with me. It shows the true tyranny and just the evil of the Empire, oh man, like, that's just such a terrible thing to do, and it does kind of make you feel a little bit of sympathy for the Kaminoans. But that does make me wonder what's going to come of the Kaminoans now. Like, are they eradicating all of them, or are they just eradicating Lama Su so that they don't have, like, leadership anymore, and they have to kind of rely on the Empire? Rampart does say he has use for Nala Se, so I wonder what's going to happen with that. Are they going to, continue to work with her, or are they going to keep a really close eye on her? What's going to become of Lama Su's project? I think it's kind of useful for her, because Lama Su is now out of the picture, but she didn't seem to have any ulterior motives. She just wanted to keep Omega safe, because she seemed to just legitimately care about her, unlike Lama Su or any of the other Kaminoans. Or maybe she does have ulterior motives and wants to use Omega for her own reasons, and that's why she wants her kept alive. There's kind of a bunch of questions up in the air of, like, what's going on there. But Lama Su's out of the picture now, and I wonder what's going to happen, because they can't just go back and get Hunter. I'm wondering if Rex is going to come in contact with them, if they're going to go bring Gregor to Rex, and then Rex will join them to help them out, because he did say, if you're ever in a bind, just call me, right? Or maybe that was what Hunter said to Rex. Either way, they both said, if you ever need me, we'll help you out. So the Bad Batch helped out Rex. I think it's just kind of stands to reason that Rex would be willing to help them out in rescuing Hunter. I'm wondering if, it's kind of a stretch, but I wonder if he could bring in Ahsoka. That would be kind of... I don't really want to see that happen, because I would kind of roll my eyes if they had another finale similar to the Luke Skywalker Mandalorian finale, where you have the big, just OP character just do all the work for the heroes. I really hope that doesn't happen again. But at the same time, it wouldn't be unfounded if Rex contacted Ahsoka and she ended up coming into the story somehow, perhaps at the very end. I don't know. I really don't know. It's really, I don't know what's going to happen. They have Hunter. Are they going to use him for some reason? Are they going to use him for this project? I know that Lama Su needed Omega because she had the pure Jango Fett DNA, but perhaps whatever project Nala Se is working on, maybe she doesn't need Omega. Well, I mean, that would be weird because she's keeping her alive, so I don't know. Maybe they could use Hunter for something. I don't know. It's really kind of all up in the air. Maybe they'll collect some allies and just go in for some kind of final strike. I think it would be interesting to see Omega kind of command the team and take on the leadership role. I think that would be really cool. I can see that definitely happening. I can't really see any of the other guys, taking on the leadership role without Hunter around. I think it would most likely be Omega taking on the leadership role going into the kind of final 2 episodes here. I really feel like they're setting up Boba Fett to have some kind of role. I don't know how he would tie into the narrative unless he's somehow in connection with Fennec Shand, which I would find weird. But, they've set him up. They mentioned him. They even had some cadet clones show up to foreshadow him. I feel like they're really setting up Boba Fett, And with his new show coming out, I feel like they'll find a way to bring him in. It makes more sense for him because he's the original clone, and, we wouldn't have the Bad Batch without Boba Fett. Before, to be fair, in the original trilogy, at that point, Boba Fett wasn't a clone in canon, but, he is still technically the original clone that we saw on screen, the first clone we ever saw. So, it would just make sense to me. His role would, sit better with me than if we just had Ahsoka show up for a cameo, So I could see Boba Fett showing up. I just don't know how they tie that into the narrative with only 2 episodes left. I think what would be most interesting, I can't see them just having Omega get kidnapped again. They did set up them going back to Kamino. I don't know if that would be in Season 2, but they've set up that the Empire has basically complete control of Kamino, and they're taking out the Kaminoans. They're possibly eradicating the Kaminoans. They're shipping the clones away. Project War Mantle is officially in, route. So I'm wondering if, we know by the time of, Solo, a Star Wars story, that they're, literally selling propaganda to people to sign up for the Empire. But at this point, they're doing it on the down low. But it appears now that the Empire is basically taking complete control of Kamino. They've taken out the leadership in Lama Su. And, Project War Mantle is officially, starting. So I would find it interesting if, Omega, the character who said she never wanted to return, ultimately says, because I've seen people talking about the idea of the Kamino uprising or the clone uprising. It would be cool to see them gather together a bunch of allies, and then Omega, perhaps they rescue Hunter, perhaps to get Crosshair back, perhaps not. But they ultimately decide to just go back to Kamino and burn it to the ground because, the Empire is just completely taking control and they just need to destroy it, They hate what it stands for, what it represents, and it's too big a threat. So they ultimately end up going back to Kamino and just destroying the place. I would find that to be an interesting way to end off Season 1. But once again, that's just speculation. You guys, please let me know, what are your thoughts on episodes 12, 13, and 14 of The Bad Batch? Did you like them as much as I did? I honestly liked all 3. This one, especially episode 14, I thought was very good. But yeah, you guys please let me know all your thoughts in the comments below. And of course, as always, I hope you guys have a great day. Take care. Bye.